Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to Listening to Lancaster. My name is Jonathan Russell with Hourglass, and it's my pleasure to be here today with Molly Crouser of the Lancaster Chamber. Hi, Molly.
Hi.
And Sara Yoskoski from the United Way. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So the reason why we're joined by these two professionals here today is to talk about events. They are both responsible for events at their respective organizations. And with the pandemic that 2020 brought us, events, as you can imagine, have changed dramatically. And Hourglass is no different. We've had to pivot in how we've done that. And I promise I won't use the word pivot more than maybe that once today, because everybody seems to use it. But I want to start off a little bit by having both of you introduce yourselves and the roles you play in your organization. Molly, do you want to go first?
Sure. So the Lancaster Chamber is a nonprofit organization that works to connect business and community in a couple of different ways. One is to advocate in kind of greater community spaces. So that's with elected officials and other community events and community organizations. We also look to connect employees, employers in hopes of collaborating and then kind of grow employership, employees in the area. So kind of advocating for professional development, resources, information for those folks. What I do specifically in the organization is our special events. Well, I would say traditionally what I do in the organization is our special events. That has changed quite a bit over the last 10 months, but I do our kind of larger fundraising events. So things like our economic forecast breakfast, state of the county, our agriculture industry banquet, and then kind of our most notably our annual dinner and our business expo are also under my responsibility. I also do all of our sponsorships for programs and events. So kind of manage that whole process from recruitment to retention to fulfillment for all of those. So
great. Sara?
So I work for United Way of Lancaster County, which works with nonprofit partners throughout all of Lancaster County to address emerging needs. So I was actually hired post-pandemic in April as the director of leadership giving and also events. So one part of my job is working with all of our leadership givers, Tocqueville Society members, and also the members of our Women United program. And then I was also brought on to manage our kind of like yearly portfolio of events, which obviously, as Molly said, looks very different this year.
Absolutely. And so one of the reasons why I asked both of you to join me is because both of your organizations have been excellent leaders in the community during this pandemic in very different and similar ways. So what has changed within your organizations and your approach to pandemic events and kind of maybe COVID and non-COVID events? I think in the beginning, there were a lot of events around COVID, and then people got kind of tired of talking about COVID all the time. So what has your organization's responses been from an events perspective?
I think for United Way, like you said, there were a lot of COVID events in the beginning. And now I think for us, it's really like, how has COVID impacted us? How has it impacted the community? It's a new year. Like, is this year going to be just as challenging? Like, just because it's 2021 doesn't mean that we all woke up on January 1st and all of the hardships and challenges just disappeared. So I think it's kind of just figuring out, like, there were needs in the community before, and now, there are 10 times as many needs. So figuring out how to address those things. So, I think when it comes to events, it's been hard to not do the typical convenings or public events. We always have our trike race, and obviously had to postpone that. And even looking into 2021, we're, instead of doing that in the spring, pushing it to the fall. But I think on the other hand, I'm going to use your word pivot of that, especially as a new person, and that we had a fairly new CEO when all of this happened, it allowed us to kind of just set up like individual chats with donors, just to get FaceTime with people that if in normal times we wouldn't have been able to get on each other's calendars. So I think in that regard, it's opened up, to allow more people to attend, because you can kind of hop in and hop off of, whether it's a update on our community impact and their initiatives. I think, attendance has been wider in a way. So even though we can't do what we normally are looking forward to, it's allowed us to kind of like broaden our reach a little bit.
Yeah, that's something we've noticed too, is that our reach has been a lot broader. There's many different kinds of people that we've been able to reach that we haven't before, which has been one of the unique blessings of what's happened, is we've been able to do that. So, Molly, anything to add to that?
Yeah, so for us, it was, there was a lot to do specifically on our lane when it came to employers and employees. So there was a lot of space for us to, especially right away, I would say between March and probably August, just a ton of information about PPP, Recovery Lancaster. We were obviously highly involved in Recovery Lancaster and that creation of that. And so what all that looked like, and really just getting people information that they weren't getting or couldn't, or was harder to find otherwise, and kind of finding the right people, asking accountant sessions, asking attorney sessions. And we also found the same thing, right? That we were broadening our network a little bit more, which was great. And we felt like we were really kind of able to provide the information that people needed from the right person, and got people the information they needed to kind of maintain during that period of time. I think the second part for us was also, we had to function as a business. And so that's where I came in a lot. So we were doing a ton of programming that was free and open to the public, and just kind of getting experts in and talking about things. Then on this other side of things, people started to look for traditional events and programs. And specifically for us, that was around like professional development and around networking. So obviously people weren't networking in person. So we had to kind of find ways that was going to be something, because people were looking for it. It was just a matter of us trying to figure out a way to do it. As well as like professional development, because it was, we're not in a space where we can just do a normal professional development anymore. It is COVID related. Most things that we do are at least in some way COVID related, specifically when we think about HR and talking about mental health in the workplace. So what does that look like? Marketing and sales post COVID, because that looks very different right now. So while it's professional development, it is all still related to COVID. So we won't be done talking about COVID for a little while, I think. But that's been kind of how we've been able to pivot our normal set of events to land, so that we're still maintaining our business structure and our business model, so we can continue to provide resources into the future, while also satisfying the needs of our business community. So that's kind of where our path was, and will continue to be too. So
great. Have either of your organizations held in-person events? And if so, how did you ensure the safety of those folks who attended?
So we actually have not held anything in person, except for we did like a drive-by for our extra give. We had like a virtual thing that you could fill out online that you then could email to us or do like a drop off, but it was all, everybody had masks on, you stayed in your car, we brought your like goodie bag to you. And then we were planning to do an in-person celebration event in October, actually at Barnstormer Stadium. And, there was like a spike in cases about 2 weeks before, and we just didn't feel comfortable. And thankfully, all of our vendors, we had partnered with Prima, obviously the Barnstormers. Everybody was just really flexible. I think that's the other thing that's been really encouraging, is to just see like Lancaster as a whole kind of we are all doing this together and trying to navigate this new world. So, our vendors were just really flexible and super accommodating, and just kind of allowed us to push everything into 2021, because they're in the same boat too. So,
Yeah.
We have not held necessarily an in-person event. A couple meetings we've held in the fall. So we didn't really technically open up the building, but for, our advocacy committee, I think met once or twice. Our board met once or twice, but we have not done any full events in person since last February. We did do our annual dinner, talk about pivot. That was totally different than it normally is. And that we were able to provide an experience for our award winners the night of our live stream. So the award winners and their families, we called them their bubbles, were able to gather together at the stadium for a portion of the evening, and they were kind of all up in their spots. So they were all separated too. Came in at different times. So we staggered entrance. We staggered getting people to their rooms. We took temperatures and things like that. We were lucky that happened September 30th, October 1st, because after that, it would not have been the same way. We probably wouldn't have been able to do that given the kind of spike that Sara was talking about. We kind of shut back down, I would say, come later, mid-October. So.
Yeah, we've also not held any in-person events. We typically have our First Friday forums have people in person, but we did, those have been on a virtual format, and that's been successful so far. But there is, all of us, I think, are missing some of that informal networking that goes along with a lot of these events, and so. Molly, you talked a little bit about trying to create some of that capacity to do those types of informal networking. Can you talk a little bit about those?
Sure. So we do, obviously the Chamber's kind of well known for its monthly mixers, and that's not happening in the traditional way, in the traditional sense, for sure. So we also do an event called Get Connected. We only did it 6 times a year. It was speed networking, speed dating. So we've upped that. We do it once a month now, and so we offer that as an option. That's kind of, again, the speed networking, a little bit more facilitated. At a lot of our events, things like our excellence exchanges, some of our niche group events or programs, we definitely use Zoom breakout sessions and try to provide opportunities for people to meet one another when it's not as facilitated. And also in some of our professional development, we'll do the same. So, a new manager academy has an element to it that's not just kind of sitting in front of the screen and watching. It's, talking with your classmates. And we just did a session, 2 sessions in December. That one was webinar. It was a 2-part session. One was webinar, and then the next week was interactive. And so that's kind of how we've been trying to create some interactive experiences. So even if it's just their faces on screen, that feels a little bit more interactive than if we're just sitting and watching a webinar. We're careful at which we do that with. Yeah. We're definitely strategic in which ones we choose to make a meeting versus a webinar, but in spaces where we've traditionally have networking, like an excellence exchange, a Get Connected, things like that, we've tried to maintain some of that using Zoom breakout sessions. Yeah.
How about you, Sara? Have you been able to facilitate some of these informal chats with folks? I know I attended an event that the United Way was a part of, the Age Friendly Summit. And there were some breakout sessions in that, which I thought were really effective.
Yeah, that was actually a really successful event. We tripled RSVPs compared to the Age Friendly Summit last year, which I think, kind of going back to what I said in the beginning, is because it was held virtually, we were just able to, really broaden the reach and send out more invites and, really get more people involved that had never even heard of Age Friendly. So Zoom and the breakout rooms, kind of as Molly was saying, was a great tool, and we got a lot of really great feedback that, people in one part of the county that were working on age-friendly issues versus people in a different part of the county working on those issues realize, oh, we are actually doing the same thing. So it was a really, really great way to connect everybody.
Great. So the natural question is, without knowing what 2021 holds and when COVID will be squashed, what do events look like going forward for your organizations?
So this is like the hardest question to ask, and this is definitely a question I've been having with like a lot of our sponsors is kind of what's our philosophy on events in 2021, because that's a whole nother piece of events is sponsorships. I'm sure Sarah works in those areas too, but thinking about how you ask someone for money for something that you don't know exactly what's going to happen with it. Is a weird conversation to have, but we've just tried to have kind of like honest conversations and say, this is what we expect it to be. This is what we hope it could be. This is kind of baseline for us. But if not, we're really excited to maybe add this networking piece to it or add that. So I think it comes to two pieces. We've been really strategic about creating a baseline, what we know and what we expect to do at the absolute worst case scenario. And I don't say worst case scenario normally. I just say kind of like, this is what we definitely know we want to do, but here's some areas where we'd like to add in if we get the opportunity to. And that a lot is, again, for us as the networking experience, is saying, great, we moved our expo from the normal expo to a publication in 2020. We're going to continue to do that in 2021, but we're going to maybe have the opportunity come August or September to add an additional piece to it. And that additional piece will then be the element that COVID ruined before, but could be the fix for this for now in 2021. So we were really strategic in almost all of our large events and our programs. Okay. The other thing is, and Sarah mentioned this as well, is that people like virtual. And there's a whole set of what we do that we foresee maintaining virtual. A lot of our professional development elements, some of our get connected, even some of that networking. People like the ability to just log on and do it and log off and not have to get in a car and drive somewhere and, that kind of thing. So there's also this piece of like, how do we get people back together? Because we know that that's what we're missing right now, but also maintain this level of ease for some of our other customers or attendees. So it's all about kind of baseline strategy for us and baseline what we can do and what we know we can provide, and then add and having those additional kind of creative ideas to add on to it when or if that time comes. It's living in the gray, and for a planner, that's not a fun space to be in. Like the worst possible space for me to be in is to be in a gray area. I really love a black and white, and so it's just living in gray right now.
Yeah, I have to agree. Like, I love, getting a schedule and knowing what's going to happen in, now it's January, but what's going to happen in December 2021. And you just really can't do that right now, which is difficult. But kind of like Molly said, I think we're, definitely hesitant to get anything in person on the books, until summer or fall. But really, a lot of the virtual events, we did the age friendly, we did a candidate conversation. Those were kind of like dry runs. And I think we just really are very capable of executing those online events. So just kind of figuring out how we can keep maximizing on the, tools that we have to pull off these online and virtual events in the next few months ahead is kind of where we're at. And agree with Molly also that like if we get the chance to do something in person, I think we'll be able to pull that together pretty quickly and take that chance. But I think for now, just really focusing on what is everybody interested in? Like, of the online events that we did, what did they like? What are they hoping for? Everybody loves online. I think the one thing we've kind of noticed is, while everybody loves online, maybe keep it a little bit shorter. Just because you have 2 hours doesn't mean we need to have a 2-hour event. So I think as we're all in this kind of like Zoom world, just figuring out, what the etiquette of Zoom events are and kind of what this new normal is.
Yeah, we're thinking there's got to be some part of this virtual that is incorporated into live events as well. You are able to reach such a broad audience that way, but you're right. You know, thinking about what's appropriate, people get fatigued from this stuff. So trying to keep things short, and I think that's great. So, I mean, the real question is, I was supposed to get married last year. When should I plan for my wedding?
Oh my God.
Don't
Don't. No.
elope. No, I don't.
No.
And don't travel. So go down to like somewhere else
You know,
in Pennsylvania.
down to the
No,
Susquehanna.
I think that's the hard part, right? Is like generally events feel like this, you know, and I certainly I can speak. We don't want our organization to be a super spreader. I mean, we don't want to be a space where we're creating more harm than we're doing good. And so we're kind of baselining virtual, but thinking about, like Sarah said, I mean, the topics. We've done more surveying than we normally do in a year just to understand what people are looking for too. That's been another big piece of our, is trying to just do the best that we can in the space that we have, while there's also hopeful anticipation that we won't be here for long.
Yeah, hoping. So what kind of fun things have you taken up during quarantine and during COVID? I know not everybody is 100% quarantined right now, but some of those fun hobbies, books, TV shows. I know, you know, at the beginning it was all Tiger King all the time, but anybody, what have you been up to? Molly, you want to go first?
Oh, go
Yeah,
ahead.
I've been cooking a lot more. So I've been trying, because also I'm at home, obviously way more. I work from home now. And so I can take like a half hour at lunchtime and make pizza dough and then have that resin for like fun pizza at night. So I've definitely been cooking more, and I've been starting to follow more like cookbooks and like food influencers on Instagram so that I can get fun like recipes. And also just binging shows. Like I feel like I've just really gone off the deep end with shows that I've already watched all the way through, but I'll just watch it through again because what else am I doing? And I know it. So but yeah, so cooking's been a big piece of it.
Cool. How about you, Sarah?
I would also say cooking. You know, definitely have been experimenting and am pretty impressed with, thought I was a pretty bad cook, but I'm not that horrible. And I'd also say, yeah, same thing with TV. I have watched so much, and the one thing I guess I'm most proud of that I watch is I'd always wanted to watch The Sopranos from beginning to end, and I finally got to do that during quarantine. What a perfect time to do it, but yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, I think my poor dog is exhausted. He gets so much walks. It's just I feel bad for the guy. He looks at me and said, "Again, do we have to go again?" So that's about where it is. But well, wonderful. Thanks so much for taking time to be with me today, and for all the work you do in Lancaster County. We're lucky to have you both.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. All right, well, take care.
Right. Bye.